Hello legends and super legends, Veloharmony here. We're ready to roll. This is a blustery day. There's a front coming in from the north, and you can see, I bet you we're probably going to be the only one on the roads today, because when we're driving over, the roads are empty. We're getting in 162 kilometers. That's our plan. So it's going to be a long day in the saddle. Got the lights going. You got your rear lights on? I got mine going, my rear lights. We got a new setting on the front light. This is a new version of the micro drive I want to share with you guys.
The camera does not do the strobe justice.
Strobe setting. Very effective. The other ones that we have does not have that setting. Look at that. Wow. Yeah, so we're rolling. Let me turn on the head unit. So you guys see, we're visible. I got my pink.
Yep.
Paul's all set up. I'm wearing my vest. It's cold. It's rainy and cold, so I'm wearing the vest to protect the gimbal if it rains on us, but shouldn't rain too much.
Do you want that to be over your pocket? Because the vest is...
I will do that. I'm gonna turn this bad boy on. Look at this. Look at this day.
This is the day.
This is the day of days. Riddick. The Chronicles of Riddick. This is a day of days. I smiled when I saw the rain this morning because I knew the others would be frowning. All right, let's see. We're going to be doing a new course that I loaded. We're going to cover the same distance as the Grand Fondo will be next week, but we're going to be doing it on our own course, so we're not sick of that course, like I said in the other videos. So that's the plan.
On this ride, we went through a town called New Waverly. I constructed a course that just grabbed all the climbs in the area and put them together. If you look at the profile, you see the spikes. New Waverly is notorious. I've never been there for having a lot of climbs, and now I see why. We also went to a place called Mount Zion. So we hit many cities on the way, but the biggest thing that threw us off was the change in the weather. It started at 22C and it ended up going down to about 5C by the time we were done. They had forecasted it would be maybe just probably around 12C, but no, it went down much colder than that. And we weren't dressed to handle that properly, so our hands were cold. You know, Paul got really cold, and we just, by crossing the lake so many times, we got buffeted. Here we go through Willis, and you see the lake coming up right there. Look at that bridge. That's a bridge. It was long, and we got buffeted around. So enjoy the clips. It was very challenging, so we got a heck of a workout.
We're ready to roll.
Yep.
Paul got the Cervelo. We got our mud guards on. It's not supposed to rain too much, but it rained last night. It rained this morning when we're driving out here, and we're heading out. What time does it say on your computer?
Right now it is 8:17.
8:17. So that means we'll be out here to 2 in the afternoon thereabouts, because I got to shift down.
I have the camera in my right hand, and
I'm
I
on a
couldn't
big
shift
camera
with
here.
it in my right hand.
Oh wow.
I got
This is amazing.
caught in the large gear.
This thing just bites right away in the park. This at least is a 2% grade. Okay. Wow. Yeah, hold this bad boy. Okay. Oh yeah, I like the strobe already, my brother.
Yeah.
At 995, what we saw the other one for?
Yep.
I'm gonna get
Nice.
black.
Yeah, for that price, man, that's it. Shoot.
The strobe.
Yeah.
The change of the strobe. Because that pulse was ineffective that they had on them.
Yeah.
So I was definitely getting.
We're talking about the Lezin micro drive. headlight.
A whole bottle of Gatorade while I was waiting on you. Like I usually do.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to start eating while we're on 149.
The wind is, the front is coming in from the north, and you can hear it. It blew the whole day. You can see it already says 11C.
So far, so good, man. Go ahead and pull your jacket down on the back. Oh yeah, on that side. No, reach up. You're pulling the jacket. There we go. On the other side as well. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I left the jacket up. I took some food and put it in the front left pocket of the jacket, of the rain vest. That's what I'm wearing, so that I don't have to go in my pockets all the time. So I had left it up. Yeah, we're going into this front that's blowing in. The temperature started at about 20, I think, what was it, 20 C. It was supposed to stop at 12 for a low, and now we're just starting to rise, already 11. So we ended up not having enough stuff on because it got colder and colder. It ended up being around 7 C. And I think part of the ride it was 5 C. I mean, it just felt cold, and with the wind blowing, it was really cold. So the weather forecast was off by quite a bit because it's like 7 C disparity. It was 7 C lower than their forecast that it was going to drop. So when we started, right now it feels warm, and I even end up zipping my rain vest down. But we're starting warming up on climbs. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm just standing. Cadence really doesn't matter at this point. You're trying to just kind of get your body going.
Yeah. I know, I'm still keeping my eye on it. That's so visible.
We're talking about what we're wearing, you know, he's talking about the visibility of my shoe cover, the overshoes. I picked the pink so it would match the striping on the jersey and also be very visible.
Yep.
I'm standing this long to kind of warm up, loosen up my body. Taking my glasses off, it's very windy, so I grabbed the bars because it's blowing it. Got to be careful when you do hands-free.
Yeah.
We're discussing how I put the route together. There are a lot of choices out here, and what I was explaining to Paul there was some of the side roads would have cut the route shorter than we wanted to do.
Yeah.
We're talking about the white line here.
Well planned. This is well planned, man.
The white line has ripples in it. I don't know if you can see, almost like a washboard, but they're not uncomfortable. They're nice, they're comfortable to go over them, if that makes sense. If you look across the street there, look at the other white line, you see those little bumps. They have it painted over, and they're very smooth speed bumps to where if a car is leaving the road, it will alert the driver. And they have it on under the yellow lines as well. But they're so much more comfortable to go over than things they've used in the past, and that's what I was explaining to Paul. Listen to that wind. We fought this every part of the ride. It ended up this ride ended up taking like 7 hours. I got cold, Paul got cold, my hands was cold, my head was cold. it just was colder than we had envisioned or would have dressed appropriately. So one of those days you couldn't really gauge it because the forecast was off. But once we got out there, we had to keep moving. We're riding in an area between Houston and Dallas, farm country. And you're going to see the attitude of the animals. This is a new area. They have a completely different attitude. Even the cows were chasing us. I've never seen cows chase anyone, you know, other than when you have stampede and stuff. But I guess we upset them because I was messing with the other cows and another group across the road started chasing us. So here we're warming up, about 12 minutes into the ride. And the highway, even though this is a state highway at a minimum, if it's not a U.S. highway, you can tell by the maintenance, there's no cars out here. So since I'm on the left, I'm constantly watching and looking back periodically because you can't hear the cars very well because of this front. I put the glasses on the back of my head because I can't see. There's so much mist on it. It's just, you know, it was better not having it on. But by the end of the ride, my eyes were itching and it was just not a good idea. I kept them off too long.
We got everything today.
Because there's a lot of pollen in the air this time of year, all of that. So, you know, Paul ended up with a nasal issue, runny nose, you know, sneezing, other things. And this is one of those. This was much after the ride the next day. I had itchy eyes for like 24 hours. So I just constantly washed my face throughout the evening and the next day.
It's not bad at all.
So this is a major highway. The speeds, I think, like 55 is posted, something like that. But there's no cars out here. There's nothing out here. You see a house now and then. So we're going to be frequenting this area and the versatility that's out here. This is another road we could use. That's what he called. So all these roads show up on the map. And look, the National Forest.
Yeah.
From here all the way to Waverly.
I was telling Paul the National Forest is everywhere. I ended up sending him a picture of the map. It is huge. It's like a city, how much stuff they set aside. We're on a completely different highway here, different side of the National Forest. And throughout this ride, we end up going through the National Forest. It covers several towns. So they weren't playing. The Sam Houston National Forest is serious. And they have bike trails in there for mountain biking. And they have signs. And I'll flag those when we come across them. It's one of those rides that you pretty much had to hang in there. I took a lot of food. If you look at my jersey, under that vest, it looks bulky. I have a lot of food. I have like 5 gels and 4 bars. Because there aren't a whole lot of stores, and we really don't like to stop when we ride unless we run out. So I brought enough stuff. It's already 10°C, so it's already 2 degrees Celsius below the forecasted low, and we just started the ride. You can see my vest, it's zipped. I'm feeling warm at this point. I guess it's the direction we're going. The wind's coming from our left right now. We're going kind of northeasterly. Northeasterly. It's beautiful country out here. Look at this road. So we're heading in the opposite direction from where the Grand Fonda will be. And the course I put together got nothing but climbs. We spent an extra hour doing this course because of the weather. This is one reason that I stress that average speed means nothing. It's out of your control. I don't care how hard you push. If the weather changes, it will take you longer, unless you got the wind behind you. And we had wind and hills, and not just wind, gusty winds. You'll see when we stop by the lakes what we're talking about. Listen to it. And I've done my usual dubbing and got the sound down, but it was just blowing. We couldn't take our hands off the bars. You'll see. Very interesting ride. Smokey Bear. I'm messing with Smokey Bear. He's on the sign.
Very long indeed. Oh yeah.
So we're climbing and going into literally gale force winds right now. So yeah, 14 kilometers an hour. That's it. Because we're still trying to warm up. That's why you can't worry about speed. I'm staying in zone 2. Your effort is what matters, not how much ground you cover.
Right off the gate. You gotta climb.
We're climbing here. This beautiful roads. So the route is a mix of busy highways, quiet country roads, going through farms and neighborhoods. It's a good variety. So we got a lot of chances to ride side by side, two abreast, and conversate to pass the time. Makes a big difference. This is a road on the right that we use one time. I think the Grand Fonda will come out of there and go right. This is Hidden Forest Road. This guy's parked there. He's doing something, walking around. Well, on most of these roads, we saw a car every now and then. We're passed by a car. This shoulder is perfect. It's wide. We've got our mud guards on because it rained all night. And rain was forecasted at periodic intervals during the day. So these mud guards keep you clean. The bike gets a little dirty in certain spots, but I like getting home dry and clean, and that's what they do their job. After our warm-up,
Walker County,
There it is.
Lake Conroe, we're crossing the lake here. Look at this. Wow. Yeah, look at the steam. I don't know if the camera will show.
you see this I don't know if you can see it looks like fog, but it's really steam because the temperature's dropping so quickly.
There was so much wind,
and the
guys.
water is warm. Look at
Look
that.
at the smoke, the steam off the water. I don't know if the camera picks it up. This is one of our biggest lakes in the area, Lake Conroe. We're way north. We're in a county called Walker County. Yeah, we're crossing the lake. We had to stop and film this for you guys and girls. Look at the water. There's a storm coming in. That's what we're
Listen to that wind. On this
It's
bridge,
coming from the north.
it's blowing from our left.
Yeah, and I tell you, it's just, we're not going to walk the whole bridge. Let's go ahead and roll.
This is not the day. You have to hold on to those bars.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We stopped to film because I wanted to get good shots and not just ride through.
This is not the day to be cute.
Look at the water. That's steam from the cold air,
We're going to be heading south.
or mist, whatever you want to call it. Condensation. Well, that condensation is almost like the water's warmer than the surrounding air that's blowing across it. Look at that.
Yeah.
Wow. It was even more impressive in person.
You have to be careful because it's very choppy. So, just crossing the lake. Watch this bump. We're going to have to use the road here.
Yeah, the pavement gets a little crappy here on the shoulder.
Here is very crappy. So we have to use the main lane.
The speeds on this road are posted at 60, but the average driver is probably doing 80. So when they go by, they're moving. They do move over, but you can tell their speeds are out. This is the only way into Waverly and across the lake. So we had to take this road, and it has a lot of good climbs on it. So that's
booking it on this highway.
yeah. That guy was doing at least 75. I mean, it was like.
On these highways.
Listen to that wind. And we're going northeast, in a northeasterly direction. So we're going into this wind, and it's swirling around
Right next to you, Paul.
and gusting. So I'm on and off the shoulder here, so Paul and I can talk. Even though the speeds are high on this road, there aren't too many cars coming very frequently.
At 22C, and we're going to end up at 12C when we're done. So, we dressed warm and appropriately so.
We're already below 12C. I was not aware of that during the ride. We were supposed to end at 12C, and that's what we dressed for, like mid 50s Fahrenheit. It ended up being in the mid 40s Fahrenheit, plus the wind. So it was colder than 40 Fahrenheit. So it ended up being like 5C.
Because this shoulder is narrow. Let's turn this way.
When the shoulder is decent, when we're going uphill whenever possible, and there's a small group, it's just two of us, I try to use the shoulder because our speeds are low. So it's easier for the cars to pass.
Waverly, noted for serious climbs. We're on the way there, and the climbs are already hitting us thick and fast.
New Waverly is in a book. There's a book published called Bicycling the Houston Area, and they cover different parts of town. Houston area loosely put because it's really outside of Houston. We're between Houston and Dallas up here. And New Waverly is noted for having some awesome climbs, and we got to experience them. And so this route ended up being like 4 times as hard, maybe 3-4 times. It's a little less than the last one we did, but just the distance alone and then the conditions. So yeah, we were tired when we were done. I slept well after this ride that evening. So I did not ride on Sunday after this ride. I just kind of rested, hung out with the family because I was gone all day Saturday. And took Monday off as well. And then today, Tuesday, I'm wrapping up this narration so I can go ride. It's early Tuesday morning here. And I've got to get a ride in, kind of get my body back into the swing of things. The Grand Fondo is coming up Sunday this week, April 15th.
Yeah.
So I'm staggering my schedule to where I will rest on Friday instead of Thursday. This is the National Forest. We're all the way several counties over, and it's all over the place. It's just huge. That's a trail bike crossing for mountain bikers. It's easy. It's really just there to let drivers know, look out for bicycles, because the trail itself, if you blink, you miss it. I had to end up freezing it and putting an arrow on it. There it is. That's the trail to go across the road. A lot of people bring their mountain bikes here and they go out in the forest and hang out. It's really cool. And the forest is probably as big as some cities. This thing is huge. We're all the way in a county called San Jacinto County. Well, close to it anyway. And the forest is there. It's all over the place. I don't know how many hectares they set aside, but it's a small city.
Yeah.
You're on a grade most of the time. It may say 1%. It's probably 1 point something, but it goes up and down. But you're climbing the whole time, and then you've got that wind blowing. So the actual speeds were low, but we stayed in zone 1 and zone 2 because this is a very long ride with only 2 riders. So we did not want to kill ourselves early in the ride with all the climbs, because we push on the climbs and then it's going to spread the effort on the other parts of the route. Since we're doing more than the Gran Fondo calls for, we know we're going to be ready. This terrain is tough. What I'm enjoying with this forage that we're doing away from town is just the incessant ability to just ride. You can ride for hours before you have to stop. Most of our stops are for health breaks because the temperature dropping, we had to pee more often. I did a video on that, you know, the body. My clip comes off here because the my shoe cover was in the way. Paul ended up seeing it and said, it doesn't look like it's in there. I think he tells me here. And then on this climb, I pull it back. Paul's telling me that the shoe covers rolled up under the cleat, so it's not letting the cleat go in the pedal like it usually does. So I reach down and pull it out. Just slide the overshoe towards the back a little bit to get out of the way. That's what I'm doing there. So I can clip in with no interference. It came out a couple of times on this ride. So I'm pulling it out of the way from the bottom of the cleat there where it's interfering. Usually it should slide under the side of the cleat, but I must have missed it when I was putting it on. Got to check for traffic, get on the road. The shoulder's okay, but when we start to go faster, like in a little bit I think we'll descend, I go ahead and use the road. Because the shoulder out here is not consistently the same size, and there was some debris on one section going downhill. You see it's posted 60. They weren't doing 60. The ones that were coming by, 75, 80, I'm guessing. I waved Paul over because this corner here, you can see it's rough, and I didn't want us to use that. Since nobody's here, the road's not busy, we figure let's use the road. So when you're on roads like these that are busy, lightly used, when vehicles are approaching, especially here you see the double yellow line, if the shoulder allows, I get on the shoulder briefly so they can go by. You want to do that if it's safe to do, meaning you can use the shoulder. Don't endanger yourself because they can always pass. Look at that road. If you look further down, you can see the road looking like it's going up into the trees. The climbs always look impressive. When you get on them, then you don't really appreciate it from a distance. Look at that road. And the pavement here is not smooth. They put a lot of rocks down, then they put tar. It keeps the road from being easily washed away. It lowers the maintenance, but it makes the surface a little less for getting the best rolling, lack of rolling resistance, meaning that you got to work to keep your bike going. There's a lot of resistance between the road and your tires on these kind of pavements. And later on it smooths out, but right here it's rough. It's not uncomfortable. You can just feel the little pebbles that are in the asphalt. So there's a lot of friction. What I like about it was on a day like this, the road was safe because it wasn't slippery. But you got to work for your speed. If you look in the distance, you will see the road looks like it's going up into the trees again. And that was one of the most serious climbs we encountered going into Waverly. It wasn't the highest gradient we encountered on this day. I think that was on Tony Tap Road, where I was overgeared on purpose. We ended up being a bad idea. So, anyway, but you can see the road look like it's part of the trees up there where that car is coming from. And we see that, and you start to get ready, and so the first thing I do is I shift to a harder set of cogs in the back, higher ratio, and then I drop my chain. So I'm on the small chain ring and ready. Because this is long, I can tell.
It's a wall, my brother.
That's what Paul's already calling it, a wall. So yeah, so right here we're climbing, and look at it. You can still see the climb. So when you situation like that, you know you're gonna be climbing for a while. Gear down, keep your legs fresh. You can see my cadence, 80. This is not the climb to do 50 RPMs on, you know, especially in company. If you're doing it by yourself, you can do whatever you want, but you want to keep your cadence decent. And you learn that by riding hills. You want to be good at riding hills, you got to ride them. Because you get a lot of practice how to shift and get into the gears when you need to. I'm on the tops so I can breathe. Keeps my lungs open. We're still climbing. So when you're on the climb, it'll go 1%, 3%, back to 1 and whatever. It's still hard. It's a little less than 1 here. It's not quite 0. We're still climbing. And I'm staying close to the white line because our speeds are very low when you're climbing, you know, 20 kilometers. So the wind is coming from our left and blowing us. We're heading east. Left is north. We're still climbing. Paul's enjoying this. It says -0. I guess it's lessening now. But it just was a nice long climb. Just what we needed to get our juices flowing. And so for me, it got me into zone 2. So then another rider might hit zone 3 or 4 or more, depending on their fitness. And that's the reason why you must build your base before you start pushing yourself. Because if you have a low base, it won't take much to get to your ceiling. It's hard to ride slowly for a period of time. Everybody wants to go fast, but you got to be patient knowing that you have to lay a foundation first so you can have something to do a hard workout from. If you're untrained and you start going fast, you're not going to be able to do it very long. And the quality won't be that good. Since we've just been climbing, I kick up my cadence here. This is a slight downhill. It says -1, -0. It's almost flat. Because I see another climb in the distance. You can see it between the trees there. This is number 3 significant climb among all the other stuff we've been dealing with. And it's still early in the ride. Those are all the things that must go through your mind. Because we've got 6.5 hours there, but I ended up being 7. I was making sure that shoe cover was not in the way. I was just checking it. The overshoes will not getting in the way of my cleats. When I got back, I looked at it. I'm not sure what was causing it. I mean, it had gotten in between the cleat and the pedal. I was cleaning it when I noticed that and confirmed it. It had been in the way. I just didn't pay attention enough when I put it on. We're climbing here, so I rolled to the right to use the... I was shifting and my big chain ring would not go down for a moment anyway. So I lost some momentum and then it went down. And then I decided I was going to stand on this entire climb. This thing is long. It's a different rhythm. My cadence ends up being in the 70s, thereabout, and that's fine. Just find a rhythm that you can maintain for the duration. Just mixing it up a little bit. If you don't select the right gear climbing and you sit, a lot of times your lower back muscles do a lot of work. You don't want to be over geared too frequently. Then you get the little aching in your lower back because you do use your back muscles when you cycle. Not sure why it keeps flipping to 0 and back to 1. We're climbing this whole time. No way it's 0. You can look at the screen and see the road going up. It's very deceiving when it over now. There it goes. It jumps to 2. This thing was hard the whole way. There were no flat spots. I moved over because there was glass over there. And when it's wet, you don't want to ride through glass because it will stick to your tire and it will work its way in. Whenever you happen to go through glass on a wet day, go ahead and stop. Spin your tire, especially if you you make sure you have gloves on, and wipe your tire. If you don't have gloves on, get something and spin the tire and wipe the glass off, because glass will stick. Water will cause the glass to stick to anything.
See what's behind us.
And if it stays on your tire, it will work its way in and give you a flat. So we always do that. Whenever we go through glass on a wet day, we stop and wipe those tires clean. Get them off the rubber. Even if you can't see it. But don't use your bare hands. Make sure you have gloves on, or you find something to use. This part of the ride here, it may say -0 or whatever, but it still was a little up and down, and then with that wind blowing from the left, there must be something. Yeah, that's yeah, okay, a piece of wood there. Anything significant, I point for a little longer than normal to make sure whoever I'm riding with understands something hazardous is there. You don't want to run over things like that. So right here, it's settling down. It says -2, -1. It ends up being relatively flat, so we try to take advantage of this terrain. We're heading pretty much northeasterly almost. Mostly east, but a little bit to the north. So the wind's kind of blowing from the cross, like hitting my shoulder. So it's there. Now, if you look at me on the bike, we're doing 35 kilometers an hour. It's almost flat in the wind. If you look at how I look on the bike, I'm not thrashing. I don't even look like I'm doing 34, 35 kilometers an hour. That's your goal. When your bike fits you, when you're going fast, you don't need to look like you're going fast. In other words, you don't need to look like you're putting out everything. I'm in zone 1 right now. Okay, most people will probably be in zone 3 or something like that, depending on the, you know, their fitness. But with the conditions as they are, because of all the miles I've put in over the years, I'm riding into the wind at right now. It says 30 kilometers. We're slowing down. We're coming to a major highway. But the key is that by doing those long, steady rides, you get fit to the point where when you go fast, you don't get anywhere near your ceiling early. That's the difference between a trained rider and an untrained rider. So when somebody else has hit their ceiling, you're barely scratching the surface. So here we come to turn circle. We're so far out of civilization that they're not even using lights here because of the low volume of traffic. This is a major interstate, Interstate 45. If you go left on Interstate 45, it'll take you to Dallas. You go right, it will take you back to Houston. We're probably a little over a third of the way between Dallas and Houston. It's where we've ended up with this ride. So we're going towards a town called New Waverly. I think I froze it here, and I made a joke about it because the population, yeah, that's the sign. New Waverly, that's the city limit right there. And so I told Paul, I said, 1,032 people. We've got more than 5,000 people on the channel. Our channel's bigger than this city. So we laughed about that.
That's it.
So we're entering New Waverly, and that's Interstate 45 we just went over. It's a main U.S. highway between Houston and Dallas, and then to the south, below Houston, it will take you to Galveston Island, near the at the Gulf of Mexico. So that's the main drag to go north and south. And where we are right now, we're close to an area. I think Huntsville is close by, Coldspring. We have so many choices out here. That's what I was telling Paul. We're gonna have to get a little more creative because there's a lot of riding out here that you know, it's just the logistics. You have to get up so early to get out here to do your rides. But it's worth it though, because there's a car behind us. I'm staying on the right. I'm gonna, yeah, wave him over so he can go. It's a truck. What we have found in the little cities, there's so much more patience than we have in the big city. We didn't have any problems out here. In fact, the local cows were our biggest issues, and you will see they got upset with us. I'm not sure why. I was harassing their friends, and I guess they took exception to that, and they started coming after us. I thought that was funny. Never had cows come after me. I must have hit a nerve or something. Yeah, I'm glad Paul cleaned the camera there. That mist, it doesn't take much to get on the lens. It's a lot of mist. We're in New Waverly, Texas. You come to this city, you got to bring your climbing legs. These boys are all, the city is on a hill. It's hard to keep your glasses on days like these because the same stuff getting on the camera gets on your glasses. So here we go left. This is Highway 75 or something, and I didn't include it on the route other than to do a little jig here to get back to a road called 150. And 150 will take us to a road that's frequented by cyclists when they come out to this area called Rogers Road. It's just a cycling dream, a beautiful road. That's where the cows, they have aggressive cows in New Waverly. The road is chewed up in this corner, and so we had to get off the shoulder there because I didn't want to go through those potholes. This is downtown.
Honey coffee.
Honey's Coffee. And we'll have to stop that. Next time we have to go and have some coffee in Honey's shop. A local auto parts store, I think. Yeah, Napa. So back in the day, you come in town, you're on your horse, and all the buildings are on the left and right, and this is the main street. So we're on our two-wheel horse, coming into town. Gunslingers. They have 1,032 people, population. And it's probably maybe 2 hours by car from Houston. So one thing about Texas, Texas has a bunch of little towns throughout the state. And Texas is probably about the size of France. It's a big state. This is Highway 150. We're not planning on staying on it very long. It's just a busy highway. Once you get out of town, it's a busy US highway. It's well paved, but the speeds of the traffic are pretty high. And so it's boring to just stay on it any longer than you need to. So we're gonna take more beautiful roads. We end up coming back to 150 throughout the ride to link us to other roads. I think shortly after here I get on the shoulder. Yeah, right there. The shoulder's nice and smooth. Especially when the line of sight is not very clear. You know, this is a double yellow. I don't think there was a car behind us, just out of habit. There's a shoulder. I prefer to just use it. Now, if it were a big group, yeah, we'd use the main lane. You can see, even though you're on the shoulder, the drivers mostly still give you room. Our turn is coming up. That's what I was telling Paul. Our navigation popped up, and this is Rogers Road. is where we meet the aggressive cows. Look at that hill. That's what I'm telling Paul. Here you go. It's all yours.
Open the road, my friend.
And you see it says 30, so the speeds are low. It's like a residential street, a road. Look at these beautiful trees. So shortly after here, I start harassing the local animals, and a group of them take exception to it. Talking to
Look at that bad boy.
they're just big, man, big cows.
The cows in the city can't hold water against
Yeah, Paul said the cows in the city can't hold water against. He's right. These cows out here are huge. Looks like they've been working out. I mean,
they're serious out here.
these are real farmers, man, not the one close to town. So I'm talking to them, and they're looking at us. I said, we're gonna eat chicken. The other cow looked at us like we owe him money. And then look at these guys. They start coming after us. They're like, enough already.
Look at them. Look at them. Yeah. They're coming at us.
I speed up. I'm like, forget these guys.
Yeah. The dog has nothing on them.
They got upset, man.
That's funny. That's funny. I took my time, man.
They take your time. Sure, I sped up a little bit. I'm like, forget those guys.
Yeah.
After that dog last week, I don't know what these cows are eating over here on this side of town. This is on the other side of where we were last week. We're on the east side of town now. Look at this road. Look how the trees are over the road. Just beautiful. Rogers Road goes for miles and miles. We didn't use the whole thing, but next time we will. Just so many options. So here we turn. Rogers Road continues straight.
Okay. Left turn. Yeah. How is that?
That guy ends up running in the water way off the road. I'm like, what the heck was he doing? I guess he was just giving us plenty of room. I'll take it. So we stop here to pee before we hit the next highway. It's almost 2 hours into the ride. Normally we don't need to, but so after we pee, we're in San Jacinto County. And this highway will take us to a road called Tony Tap Road. And I think it has like almost a 10% grade on there. And I end up being overgeared when we get there. It's a little ways away. So that's further down, but before we get to Tony Tap Road, we'll get on a road called Dabney Bottom Road. I think in a little while I'll get Paul to come up front. So we're heading east. The wind and the gusts are coming from our left. So we never had a perfect tailwind at any point in this ride. That's what happens when fronts are blowing in. They pretty much cover the whole area and they swirl around. It wasn't a day for hands-free riding, that's for sure. So the reason I spend a lot of time at the front is because I've been riding for a lot of years at different levels, and it's kind of like Paul and I share the work, but I want to make sure that he continues to improve. So you can see he's not really drafting super close here because we're not going full gas. For me, I'm in zone 1 and we're doing 30 kilometers an hour with the wind swirling around. For the next person, it might be zone 3 for them at the same effort. And that's the challenge, to where when you look at heart rate, it varies. And I've said that before, you can't look at that. The only true consistent measure to compare between two different individuals is really wattage. You know, watts are watts, that's it. So at some point in the future, I will get something that measures powers that will work for me. We're looking at different options, and I had a gentleman come to the channel and post it that there is a new power meter coming out by some Dutch techs, and they're trying to introduce something that you mount on the crank arm, and it looks very promising. I want something that won't mess with that won't have to mess with my setup, my pedals or anything, that you can move between bikes easily. And it looks like if this comes out like it's supposed to be, he said that they would send, I told him as I would like to introduce it to you guys on the channel, and so he wanted to know how to contact me, and so I responded in the comments. That was for the last video I made. I think it was the one on Revisit Your Fit. Yeah, so hopefully that will work out and we'll get it and we'll introduce it to you guys, and then I will test it, put it through the ringer, and that will be a good product for anybody to get that's trying to improve consistently. You don't have to have one to improve, but it really increases the specificity of your training if you do. So Paul comes to the front to lead us for a while. Paul ended up being very cold on this ride because he runs colder than I do, and I was cold. My hands and head was cold. My torso was fine. My feet and legs were fine. It was my hands and head that was cold because it just the temperature just went. You see, it says 8C. We didn't expect to go that low. Now, if you notice, I got in Paul's draft and my heart rate dropped like 20 beats. So I'm like 118, 120. That's the benefit of the draft. So I'm in the bottom of zone 1 pretty much here and just taking a break. So when I go back now, it's going up. We must be climbing on the wind has picked. Yeah, speed's gone up. And it's blustery, so we're going 32 to 34 kilometers an hour. So my heart rate went up a bit, now it's going back down. So you can't just look at heart rate because it fluctuates, goes up, down, and it settles. So I'm in zone 1 following Paul, but I'm not following super closely. You can see I'm behind, really trying to get shots. I don't pay attention to all that stuff during the ride that I'm narrating about heart rate. I don't have time for that. I just ride. I mess with the cows. I look for potholes. I read the road. That's very important when you're riding. Those of you who remember, Joe Nanga said that he hit a crack and it caused him to crash. You don't need cars or dogs to cause you to fall. The road itself can do that. You need to read the road. When you're riding your bike, know where your tire is going. Know where your tire is riding. Keep your eye on the road. I mean, look down the road. I'm not saying right in front of your tire, but you need to know what's coming. That's why we call out obstacles. They can cause you to fall, and they can damage your equipment. We'll call it reading the road. So we're turning left here on Dabney Bottom Road.
Yeah, it was fish there. There you go. Careful, the blind corner.
So now that we're getting off a main highway, it's almost 3 hours into the ride. I suggest that we get something to eat as soon as we turn on this road. These are the spots where we eat. You can kind of back off the pace. It's not a busy road.
You can get something to eat here.
Not that you can't eat on a busy road, but it's just better here. It's almost like you're taking a slight
it's time
break
for us to
for a snack. Now, because it's so windy, we can't take our hands off the bars.
It's time for us to get something in the tank.
And since we're going to be digging, you know, wearing all kinds of stuff, when you're not carrying as much stuff like jackets and vests, you can reach your food. So I gave him the camera here because Paul's already got his food out, so I can get mine out. And I think I go ahead and grab a gel, and then I get the banana bread out. The light on my bike, the front light, ended up lasting maybe 3 hours or a little over. I don't remember when it went off, but the strobe setting, as effective as it is, it does use more power, so it did not go to full distance. The flashing mode Paul used lasted longer, so I just made a note that the strobe is great for rides for 3 hours or less. You can see that thing is so effective. The camera doesn't do it justice. I mean, if you think about how police cars look when they have strobe lights on, yeah, that's how that was. That thing, yeah, you can't miss that. I really like that they added that setting to the new version of the Lezine Micro Drive. You can notice my hands on the bars because the winds were gusting. You couldn't tell when, but I wasn't taking a chance. It will knock you down. You know, so I don't like falling. So
I say you designed this one perfectly. Yeah, man.
You're busy road, but you can't avoid that. That's the only way.
Spot on.
So you take a few moments, you know, when it's good for you, and then you eat, and then you can get back. There's a car coming, so I move over to the right. There's one of the roads on the heat maps that said a lot of cyclists use it. So I look for these roads because they're usually quieter. The speeds on them are lower. The only thing is they're not as well maintained. And because they're back roads, when it rains, the water gets all over them. They're not protected with major sewage or, you know, gullies or gutters or whatever. So you have little creeks nearby, then you have problems with them. And that's why it looks all chewed up. It's the water that damages these roads.
Go ahead, keep eating.
I was going to give Paul a banana bread, but he said he had enough.
I have my hand full.
You don't want to just do gels. I don't do power bars anymore. They used to get too hard, you know, especially in the cold. And so I bring food. I bake that banana bread and I bring it with me. It gives you a good variety so you're not sick of all the other stuff. And then it spreads the use of your gels. The gels are not inexpensive. So I bring regular food from the house. Just put them in a baggie. You're out for 7 hours. You want to eat some food, not just, you know, carb stuff or energy bars. So you notice I got my hand on the bar. Before I even pull my vest down, I put my hand on the other side and hold the bread. I'm not letting that bar go because it's gusting. You hear that? It's dubbed, but you can hear the wind. It's swirling around. This is a slight downhill. It says -2. It's a downhill because we're rolling here, even with the wind. But we're going directly into the wind, kind of, well, northeasterly, but felt like we were going into the wind. This is what happens on a long ride. It's not all about on the rivet. You get to eat, you chat. In a little bit we'll show, I think Paul starts to talk about the water line. This road was covered, the same water that covered Johnson Road when we did last week's ride. This is the other side of town on the east side, miles and miles away, but that rain, it rained for 24 hours non-stop. In one day we had a lot of rain, and these creeks fill up. And they're connected to those lakes that you're going to see. The one that we showed, all the lakes connect to these guys. But most of the lakes in the area are man-made.
No, man, that's That's your Waverly talking.
I'm telling Paul we're going downhill. He says that's New Waverly talking. He says after riding all those hills, everything feels easy. I said we're going downhill. I'm not even pedaling. You can see it says -4, -3. Yeah, this is a downhill.
Yeah, it's downhill here.
So the next time we do this road, I want to come the opposite way because that means this will be a heck of a climb on Dabney Bottom from the opposite direction. The entire day, my torso, my legs, my feet were fine. That's my.
Look at how
Look at the water line.
here, man.
There's the water line. That's where all the debris is. It was definitely over the road.
Man.
That was last Wednesday's rain.
Look at next to this thing. That means that this was underwater. Can't tell.
Probably one of the flash floods. It was moving stuff. See all the wood?
Yeah.
The good thing is all the debris was caught in the fence, so it didn't come on the road. That's the debris you're looking at from the water. That kind of lets you know where the water line was if you look to the left there. All that debris could have been on the road.
Yeah. Another car back.
There's a car back. Paul told me about it. You can't hear these cars because we're going into the wind here.
Yeah.
I decided to stand here, kind of loosen up a little bit. We're finished eating. The break is over. This bad boy starts to go up. When you stand, what you want to make sure you're not laboring, and just get a rhythm. Just do what feels good, because you're standing to relieve your muscles and just change your position and add the force of your upper body. So just get a tempo that feels good. Don't worry about the numbers, as long as you can handle the gear. You don't need to be spinning at high cadence. It's just not efficient when you're standing. So if you watch me when I stand, yeah, 1, 2, 1, 2. My tempo seems to be around 70. I can stand at a faster cadence, but right here I'm not really going hard. So I could go maybe in the 80s if I wanted to. But whatever it is you're doing, it needs to be a rhythm that feels like, okay, I can sustain this. This is a slight grade on this road. It says -0, that's not realistic. We're climbing. You see how I sat with one motion. If you want to know how to pedal standing and sitting without stopping your pedaling, go into the playlist on the channel. Look into the pedaling playlist. I have a video that covers how to stand without stopping your pedaling. The assumption is your bike has been fitted to your body.
President, vice president, all that stuff.
Yeah, I remember.
The Grimes County Courthouse was passed that day.
Yeah.
Built a long time ago. 18-something. I was reading in that yellow book. A lot of history in this town.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the different history. I've been reading up about these little towns that we're going into. And for the Grand Fondo, the town of Anderson was one of the first major cities in Texas. Texas used to be a republic. The Republic of Texas, that's where the vice president of the Republic of Texas used to live. Was in Anderson. I didn't know that. That was kind of cool. to read about that. This was in 1800 and something, the 19th century. So all these towns and the buildings are still standing that they built. I'm excited here. I see the road going up. Stand up again. When you stand, you're just walking the bike. It comes along for the walk. That's all. It comes along. That's why you see it moving. It's doing its own thing. I'm not doing that. I'm just moving my legs, pulling up. Gravity pushes down. You just pull up. The bike will follow you. And when I sit, the bike is right there because everything's in the right spot. That's the key about fit. So the goal of this ride is just to cover the distance. We're not setting any records, especially with the conditions like they are. We're just riding in a reasonable zone. So like zone 2 right now. We could go faster if we wanted to, but this was not the goal for this ride. We're conditioning our bodies to handle these repeated climbs. Next week will be the time to play. So all I do on these roads when they get chopped up like this is make sure I find a clean line. You're not competing with too many cars that frequently, so you can use pretty much the whole road. I make sure I find a clean line, save your wheels. So the entire ride was like this, up and down, up and down. We're coming to, I think this is 943. It's another state highway. We're going to use it for a little while to get us to Tony Tap Road. We had used this road in the Heroes ride. This was a rest stop on that corner. At this point in the ride, we're near an area called Coldspring. We don't go to Coldspring because it just would have been like 200 kilometers. We didn't have time for that. But that's another area we'll ride in the future because they've got some awesome climbs there too. We ended up going to a place called Magnolia. And so I guess we have several Magnolia because in our town, close to town, there's a place called Magnolia as well in Montgomery County. So we're going southeasterly, so we've got the wind mostly behind us, but it's still blustery. You can hear it. You can see it going over my vest. The fit of that vest is very good because for that kind of a day that this ride was happening on with the kind of wind we're dealing with, I expected that thing to look like they would have ripples throughout all the time. But they did a good design. It's a good fitting vest because I had a lot of stuff in my pockets as well, and I was in and out of there. Because as it got colder, we're eating more and more because your digestion creates nice warmth in the body as well. There's a slight grade here. I didn't have to shift down much. Not sure what I said there to Paul, but he laughed. We find a way to laugh at most things we encounter on the road, favorable or unfavorable, because you just don't want any incident ruining your ride. It's not worth it. So we don't take ourselves too seriously. We just enjoy being out there. It's a joy to be able to just get out and go ride and get yourself in shape. Just having the time and your health to be able to do that. I freeze it here because a bunch of dogs in the yard, they start messing with us. They're all excited we're coming. They always know we're coming. So I'm messing with them. And they have a yard where they go through the main gate over there. You see the main gate, they go under it and they're still fenced in, and they have more yard. So then I start messing with them. I think I race them a little bit. Yeah. And then they have to stop because the fence ends over there by that tree. And I'm like, come on. We encountered so many dogs on this ride, and quite a few of them were unrestrained. They came on the road, and so what we did, we made sure we did not allow them to get in front of us. We yelled at them. There was some of them, I even took my water bottle and kind of acted like I was going to squirt them. I didn't want to because it's a long ride. I needed my drink. But just enough to freeze them to where you get past them. So a lot of owners out there were kind of irresponsible because these dogs can get harmed coming on these highways. You know, the cars won't see them.
Tony Type Road, boys and girls, we stopped to turn this on because this road got a climb that's serious. It's about probably 10%. So we're going to show you guys that, guys and girls. So hang on, let's do this.
Tony Tap Road, 10% climb.
Let's do this.
Next time we come through here, I'm going to use an easier gear.
Tony did to get a road. But, yeah. I hate when it does that.
Because I underestimated Tony Tap.
Tony Tap Road.
So it did not matter which direction we were going in. This front was blowing in so drastically that it was just everywhere. So right now it says 8C, and my hands were cold. I mean, not freezing cold, just uncomfortably cold. Because the gloves I have are for like 10C and up.
Open road. Hey,
had I known it was going to get down that low, I would have brought the big dogs out to cover my digits.
Aggressive dogs out here, man.
But I like the way the gloves look with the blue jersey.
They're just letting us know you're not a turtle.
And that helmet did not help much. That helmet's gonna be great in the summer.
This is our land.
Because my head was cold. Even with the cap on. That helmet really is well ventilated. That's gonna be my go-to helmet this summer. Listen to that wind. So all the riding we did in the winter has paid off because my condition is very good. For my heart rate to be hanging around zone 1, for the conditions we were riding in zone 1 and zone 2, that was pretty good to see.
No, this was a good call on your part, man.
Paul likes the route.
As he said.
I made a joke about that because if you wear the wrong stuff in cold weather, you affect your joints down the road, especially your knees. Because I had sent Paul a text early in the morning before the ride, letting him know, man, the temperature's going to be changing. We need to gear up. And I told him I was wearing tights and everything. That's what he said. It was a good call.
The good thing is the rest of this route, we're either going this way or that way. We got to go back 1725 for that stretch. That was the wind. After that, we're going to be going west.
Yeah. I was telling him we got one more stretch where we got to ride into the wind.
We'll ride north.
Listen to that. It was gusting. You had to keep your hands on the bars.
Somebody came here and paved this road.
Yep.
Tony Tap. I don't remember it being this smooth out here. Yeah. Waiting for the demo center.
I really think this is the water that ruined these roads, man.
Oh yeah, of course. The water will wash it away. If there's enough water, it will literally wash the road away instantly.
Yeah.
You can see the water line. That's from last Wednesday.
Sometimes it even doesn't.
There's a creek on this road, and it's tied into those lakes we're
Water is powerful.
passing.
Well, look at it. Look at the.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Look at all the debris that the water brought.
That's why they put the concrete there. You see that?
Yeah.
To hold the tar. What's that?
And they got concrete to keep that asphalt from being washed away.
Yeah.
That's why they put their concrete there. That's why in the woodlands and Milton's Road they put that extra.
That's why they do that in the woodlands.
Asphalt is always when it's very hungry. That's why they put rocks down on top of it.
Yeah.
Grinding it thinly. That's why into the Waverly has been rough.
Yeah.
It lasts. Yeah.
That second was rough, but we were rolling on it.
Once we got into the county, there was another county. And it was no trespassing.
Look at that.
Yeah, that's a creek. Some kind of creek. I don't know if it's Lake Creek. I forgot.
All of these creeks are tied into the larger lakes, like Lake Conroe.
Yeah.
Remember, Lake Conroe ties into all this stuff.
Yeah, you're gonna see the bridge
Look
here.
at the water over the bridge. See the sand?
Yeah.
That's from the water.
So when Lake Conroe releases, it has a reservoir. It affects all these little creeks.
That's from when there's rain. Last week. Remember Johnson Road was covered?
So I decided to not shift, which was a bad idea.
I'm not shifting.
I told Paul I'm not shifting. And we came here to do this climb, but man, I'm in a 5319, which is a very big gear. And my cadence keeps going down. I mean, I can carry the gear, but it wasn't the best gear for it. But you know, it's a good workout. I end up pulling out of the cleat because that booty on the left is interfering. Somehow it got in the way again. So I'm pulling so hard on it, and then it comes out. I lose my momentum right there. I clip back in. Then I gotta get going again. Yeah. I can handle the gear. It's just, you know, it's not the best gear, but you know, it's a good workout. You notice I didn't sit. Yeah, because I don't have to strain my back. So right there, the climb's pretty much over. I mean, we're at 1%. It got up to like 8 or 9%, I think. That's too large a gear. You know, you can do that for just the workout. You know, just that was my reason for doing it. Yeah.
Ooh, 5319 was too big. I took that bad boy in the 5319. Big mistake.
I heard you say I'm not shifted. I said, forget you. That second was hard.
You're going. That's too much tension on the chain.
Ooh, that hurt.
Yeah. My legs felt like, man, what are you doing? That's okay. Doesn't kill you, make you stronger.
That's hard.
And that's kind of how you want to ride your hills. When you're training, hammer them and then rest after that. So eventually you'll be able to just roll over. I chose to use a very large gear. You know, it wasn't the most efficient way to go up that hill, but it's a workout for the legs.
Yeah. Wow. Look at that side.
Just peaceful. B-E-A-U.
I got that from Bruce Almighty, the movie B-E-A-Beautiful. I just like that. I love the isolation of these roads. So most of this ride, we felt like we're just in the middle of nowhere. You're out of civilization, so you know you need to make sure you got your patch kit and all that kind of stuff, your tube, your pump, because you're not going to be able to flag anybody down. And you don't want to call an Uber ride from here. It would cost you. Once again, those mud guards did a job. I got pink booties on and they kept it clean. You know, it got a few little specks of dirt on it. I washed it as soon as I got home so it won't set in. But without those mud guards, it would have been black.
Yeah.
So now we're heading north into the wind. This is 1725, FM 1725. We're still in San Jacinto County. There's a lot of lakes in the area, and in this front. So normally this road, you fly down this road, but not today. So you just settle in whatever zone you want to ride it in, and you know, get to the business of riding. I plan on just staying in zone 2. Look at the dog. There's a dog here with teeth. He looks kind of chunky. He hadn't been working out. Then he wants to race. I told him, I said, you're going to have a coronary.
There's no big for his blood.
We grew up with dogs, man. You know, when I was a kid, we always had a lot of dogs. So I treat them like people. Because our dogs, you talk to them, they kind of new. You know, in our house, the dogs were not allowed in the house. They had their own area. They had their own house, and they stayed outside. They would come to the front door and just lay at the front door, but they never came in the house. They knew that. So dogs are very smart. I treat them like people. I talk to them. But I'm not going to be petting a dog I don't know. I grew up around dogs. If a dog is a vicious dog, you go and pet him, you might lose your hand. You need to know the dog. You know, because they are animals, you know, and they're all different depending on how they were raised. So don't pet strange dogs. Get to know them first. I mean, the wind is blowing. This road is rolling, and that's the way back. We go north and then we head west. And until like mid-May, these are the kind of days we get around here. We always get fronts. It'll warm up. Like last week, it was in the 80s one day, and then now it's 8C. You know, it was like 25C midweek. That's why most of my stuff is for changeable weather. I really like the blue jersey I'm wearing. I was comfortable here, even though it was it was like 8C there. It felt more like 5C. And I was still comfortable with the rain vest and that thermal jersey. I didn't need anything else. What I needed were heavier gloves and a warmer helmet. That helmet just brought all the air in. And my head was cold. And my face was cold, so I could have used maybe the neck warmer or something, had I known it was going to be this windy and cold. And we checked the forecast up until the time we left home. The forecast was just wrong as to what temperature, you know, the weather changes. So we're going pretty much into the wind here. It says northwest and north, but that's where the front is. See, my effort level has gone up. I'm at the top of zone 2. Is that, yeah, it's 3. Zone 3. So zone 3 for me is like 153 to like 163. I don't spend too much time in that zone. So right now it's true. So now this is zone 2. So either I'm in zone 2 or I go through 3 to get to 4. There's no point training and temping. So here you get the most benefit of building your capillaries that transports the nutrients to your muscles. So my heart rate had spiked a little bit because of the wind and the grade. I don't really worry about it while I'm riding. I just do it by feel. I can tell when I'm crossing over into zone 4. It's good to know that this store was there because I'm going to mark that on the map so we know where all the stores are so we can plan our stops. This is the effort we want to maintain for this ride. Right in zone 2. Here we're in tempo, going to the bottom of zone 4 because of the wind. I decided to just press on so we can get out of this headwind. You can hear that thing blowing. Main reason is my head's cold. That helmet just sucking in all the air. It's doing its job, you know. I chose it because I thought it'd be 12C, which I tend to run hot, and picking that helmet, I'd be able to keep my cap on all day. But ended up going down a lot more. I had pressed earlier and now it's settling right back at zone 2. So you have to pace properly. We've got about 2.5, 3 hours left in this ride. I've been eating, you can see, that's why my vest is up over my pocket. I've been getting in there to get food. Because when it's cold, you need to eat even more. You burn more calories in the cold. And then by eating, your body generates heat from digestion. That helps keep you warm. I'm sitting a little upright to give Paul more of a draft instead of being on the drops. Beautiful country out here. Look at it. Look at those roads. Look at the road curving to the left and just kind of going splitting the trees there. Wind is mostly in our face and slightly off to the right. That's where it's coming from. This is why you can't depend on average speed. I'm in zone 2 and normally we'd be well in 33, 32 kilometers an hour. Here we're doing 26. So average speed means nothing. It's the effort you're putting out that matters. The conditions dictate what speed you get.
We're on the downside of a 6.5-hour ride, probably almost 7 hours. I don't know where we are, but this is Lake Conroe, and you can see. I don't know if this thing is doing justice. The steam off the water.
Yeah.
And look at that.
That's the wind we've been dealing with blowing across the water because the water's warm.
That's amazing.
Getting all this mist.
Just the wind. Because the water is warm and the air is cold. So it's just steaming.
This is it.
I think we should just leave it on from here. We got 17 kilometers. Let's leave it on. So this is
This is the final leg of the excursion into far north San Jacinto County. We're heading back across the lake on FM 1097. I chose this road because coming back is the only way to get across the lake that makes sense. It has a shoulder most of the way. Where it doesn't, the drivers are aware of cyclists out here. It's a heavily cycled route, and it's got some nice rollers on it too. But there was a very long bridge that takes us across the main section of Lake Conroe that we got buffeted underneath. It's like an ocean. It's like going across an ocean. Yet another climb. It's got up to like 5%.
Yeah. Really? Yeah.
Telling Paul that we've done a ride called Burn Your Buns out of Willis, Texas. This is on the outskirts of Willis, and we've ridden on this road before from the opposite direction. This day, up and down, all day long. But now the wind is on our right. It's blowing from the right as we head west. A little northwesterly, but mostly west. It's blowing. That sign says reduce shoulder ahead. You know, the shoulder gets smaller. So. Piece of the lake here. This is not the main bridge. You can hear the wind as we go across the water. On the largest expanse of the lake, the bridge is like probably 2 miles at least, if not more. Listen to that one. ride, Paul was feeling very cold because we're being buffeted by the wind, and he runs colder than I do. We didn't expect this thing to fall as much as it had. See, it says 7C. With that wind, it felt colder. It felt like 5C or less, like a 4C. Fahrenheit-wise, it said 42 degrees on our units, but it felt colder than that. But as these hills were coming, I just kept it kind of steady. We're almost at the end of the route. There's the main expanse of the lake. You can see it on the right. It's coming down. After we get past the buildings. See how it looks clear between those trees. That's the water. Everybody builds on the edge of the water. Everybody wants lakefront property. Closer to the largest expanse of the lake. If you look in the distance, it looks kind of gray when you follow the road. That's water there. The wind starts picking up even more. I have trouble staying to the right. It's blowing me left. See, there's the bridge, there's the lake. Beautiful. Because on a day like this, we couldn't really enjoy it. We couldn't see a whole lot because of the cold air pounding the water, making all that mist. It's one of the longest bridges I've crossed on a bicycle. This is the largest part of the lake. Look at that. Riding to a fall. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, pounded here. It's at least 2 miles. Paul ended up falling out of the draft. I wasn't aware of it, I was just riding. It happens in a little while. Even the seagulls, I don't know if they'll show up on the camera. There's one up there in the middle of the road. They're getting blown around. Look at that. Trying to go north and it's blowing it. Look, they were struggling. I mean, it was just vicious. And all this mist you see is the wind hitting the water. Look at that. The seagulls were having problems. That front blowing in. Look on the water, you will see the mist. It looks almost like they're waves, but they're not. That's just mist from the cold air bouncing off the water. I'm trying to stay to the right, and it's blowing me towards the white line. And so I lean towards the right. It's still blowing me. And then somebody put a deck chair here, like a pool chair on the side of the island. Sitting there looking at that water with his cars But at this point here, I'm not aware that Paul falls away from the draft, but he does. In a little while, I end up pulling away. I didn't find out till later. here he said he needed to blow his nose. You can't take your hands off the bar. He's got the camera. So we have to stop because there's a lot of pollen in the air. It was getting in my eyes and nose. So we stopped so he could blow his nose. I needed to blow my nose too. And you can't take your hand off the bar. It's blowing so much. So here we're stopped. I think I have the camera. Look at that. Look at the mist off the water. And the water's choppy because of the wind. It's like an ocean. Huge lake. Lake Conroe. There's nobody boating today. Rightfully so. So I hand Paul the camera back here. Actively trying to stay more to the right, and this thing is blowing me to the left. so I lean my body weight towards the barrier. That's kind of how you do it. I lean my body weight towards the barrier so as a result, I'm able to track where you see me tracking. But still, from time to time, when you blow me left. All I do is I just lean into it a little bit. I don't want to ride by the edge of that thing anyway. So that year I started to pull away. I'm not aware of it. But I guess Paul decided we're at the end of the ride. He's not going to kill himself trying to get across this bridge in this gale force thing. I had expected him to be on my left, but he wasn't. So if you watch my cadence, and if you watch the speed, you'll see when I discover. I speeded up here because I actually ended up riding for a while by myself. I wasn't aware. See the distance between us. The bridge is very long bridge. The mist coming across the bridge, and I'm all the way down there. Once I realize it, I go ahead and stop. See my cadence dropping, my speed's dropping. I basically come to a stop. Wait for Paul, because at this point that's the end of the ride. So he was cold, he didn't want to deal with all that, you know, so right here we hook back up and bring it in. I hope you all got a chance to get out and get your K's in. This is what we did on Saturday, getting ready for the Grand Fondo, Texas, the RBC Grand Fondo. Get your K's in.